And now, your go-to source for year-round fantasy hockey advice, DFS, and betting coverage. This is NHL Fantasy on Ice, presented by Skip, the official food delivery app of the NHL.
It's a nightmare to see McDavid down, but 2 to 3 weeks isn't so bad. Happy Halloween, brought to you by our good friends over at Skip. Welcome to another episode of NHL Fantasy on Ice, Week 4 Mailbag Edition. Nick Alberga and Jake Hahn with you. What's going on, Jake?
Not best case scenario, but I would also say not worst case scenario with the Connor McDavid injury news. Nick, if I'm an Oilers fan, I'm breathing a slight sigh of relief this week. And of course, this episode brought to you by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip.
You're right. It could be much worse. As per usual, Jake, we got a lot to cover on today's podcast. We're going to do our normal betting segment coming up. We've been hot, Jake. I won't lie. We've been hot in our picks on this podcast, which is great to see first and foremost.
We've been hot on the podcast. We've been hot in the group chat as well. The group chat's been kind of buzzing with picks, although I got a little cocky after my Columbus underdog a few nights ago, and I went dog hunting the next night. It didn't work out. But hey, as producer Bobby said, that's part of the fun. That's part of the game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. We'll try to cook up some winners later in the pod here.
We love our dogs on this podcast. Of course, we got your mailbag questions. Pete Jensen's coming up as well. But fantasy headlines, none bigger than Connor McDavid. He goes down. Automatically, you think of the worst. But as you mentioned, and as we've talked about, not the worst case scenario, 2 to 3 weeks, an ankle injury. But there are so many ramifications to this in fantasy hockey.
Well, yeah, and I think everyone's always thinking, okay, I got to look for a replacement for Connor McDavid on my lineup. It just, that doesn't exist, right? There's no replacement for Connor McDavid. He's the number one fantasy asset out there. So I think you look in-house in Edmonton. I think that's where the conversation is for me, Nick, and I'm curious your take on this. Is there anybody in that lineup that you think gets a bump, right? Obviously, McDavid's out there, so we think, Hyman with his struggles, maybe it actually gets worse for him. But hey, maybe a different look, different line combination is what he needs right now. Victor Arvidsson goes up on that top line with Draisaitl. He's still looking for his first goal of the season, so maybe we've got a little bit more interest in Arvy now.
Yeah, there's a couple different guys. This coming from practice on Wednesday for the Oilers as they prepare for Nashville once again on Thursday. They got Skinner, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is getting a bump with Hyman, and then Podkolzin, Draisaitl, and Arvidsson. I'd also say, and it's not favoritism, but Adam Henrique is a guy who has proved time and time in his career he can be elevated in the lineup. I know he's a 3C right now, but if you look at his track record, this guy's like a bona fide 20, 25 goal scorer year in and year out, and I think if there's an injury like this, a guy like Adam Henrique I wouldn't sleep on internally. But honestly, externally is probably your best bet when trying to replace Connor McDavid. Fortunately, there's so many red-hot centers right now. Michael Granlund with San Jose, Casey Middlestat with Colorado, Matt Duchene, contract here, Sam Bennett. That's the good thing about the depth position up the middle is there's a lot of depth.
I know Rico's your boy, but I'm with you on that one. Adam Henrique, he's shown that he can get up into a top 6 role and actually produce and get some power play time there as well. Maybe we look to a couple of the Jackets centers, Nick. I mean, Monahan's probably owned up in most leagues at this point with the start that he's been off to, but don't look now. Cole Sillinger is kind of getting it going there in that Jackets lineup, so deeper league, maybe look to him. As you said, there's plenty of options, but if you're a McDavid owner, I don't think I'd be expecting to get that production from the waiver wire. You're just trying to tread water the next couple weeks.
That's exactly it. I know we've talked about this before. It's been a very slow, leaky start, we'll say, for the Edmonton Oilers, but I know there's been some questions out there. What do you do? Do you just sell on some of these guys? Is it going to be that type of year? In fact, I'd probably do the opposite when it comes to Edmonton. I think at some point in time, Jake, they're going to catch fire. It's inevitable.
We talked about it on the last episode about buying low on Zach Hyman. I think now is even more of a perfect time to do it because, okay, you're freaking out. He's got no goals so far this season. Oh, man, now McDavid's injured for 2 to 3 weeks. I don't even want this guy on my roster anymore. So I think you could really lowball someone for Hyman, and it's a very long season, Nick. If you feel like your roster's strong enough the next few weeks, and then you're going to get Zach Hyman back attached to McDavid in the important part of the fantasy season, the second half and into the playoffs, that's a trade I'd be willing to make right now. And I would like to see something from Arvidsson, Skinner, some of these other guys, but I would still be targeting Zach Hyman if I can via trade.
Very sleepy start for the Edmonton Oilers, but we got to address the crease, Jake, as well in Carolina, man. Stop me if you've heard this. Freddie Anderson goes down. Short-term injury, they're calling it, lower body issue, but there's something about Pyotr Kochetkov. I don't know if I can trust the guy. It's been an up and down start to his season, and I think I'd probably look externally for replacements here.
Well, it doesn't seem like the Canes are ready to give him the car keys either, right? Like they are always reluctant to say, yeah, this is the guy, and okay, he's going to get the 60, 70% of the starts and be that guy over the long term. So the fact they're holding back on that worries me a little bit. But man, Freddie, again, like I'm glad I got out of this file years ago. I just said I'm done with it. I can't handle all the injuries. Not shocked that he's hurt again. So I still trust Kochetkov and that team enough, Nick. I just think that he's so well insulated on that Canes team. We worried about losing defensemen in the offseason. I think they're still playing Carolina Hurricanes hockey, in my opinion. So I would be fine, comfortable starting Kochetkov the rest of the year.
Would you trade for Kochetkov?
Trade, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm trading for him or giving up assets for him, just because there's still a lot of question marks in terms of, okay, is he actually going to be the guy the rest of the season? Can he run with it? What happens if Freddie comes back or they go elsewhere with the goaltending position? So, if the trade is right, then I would entertain it, but I don't think it's something I would be going out there and really reaching for.
Put it this way, I'm a Pyotr Kochetkov owner in one of my keeper leagues, and I'm lukewarm on the file. I'm going to continue to feel that way. In general, I think it could cost Carolina the Stanley Cup once again this year. I just don't trust their crease. Spencer Martin, by the way, backing up. Externally, some pretty decent options right now. Kevin Lankinen with Vancouver. It sounds like Thatcher Demko is still 2 to 3 weeks away. Justus Annunen with Colorado, and you're starting to get a feeling with Lucas Dostal a bit, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I was literally just about to ask you about Lucas Dostal. And are we officially buying this file now? I am. I think you know that I already am, and I've got him in a couple of leagues. And, I understand he plays for the Ducks, and that's probably going to cause some headaches at some point. There might be a couple weeks where your goalie categories aren't looking too great just because Anaheim still can't really defend. But this guy is playing at such a high level right now. And Nick, one of your favorite words in all of fantasy hockey, or 2 words, I should say, contract year, Lucas Dostal.
Fair enough. Let's get some mailbag questions. We'll start with this interesting comparable. Nylander or Pettersson? A month into this season, I still have no clue what's going on with Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. I watched the game against New Jersey. They got smoked on Wednesday. But to me, it's an easy answer. I would go with Willie Nylander. It looks pretty good, looked refreshed. In that victory the other night, he's playing with Pacioretty. He's playing with John Tavares. There seems to be a bit of chemistry there. And I just can't figure out EP40 right now, Jake.
Not even a question for me. I think Nylander is a complete stud in this league, and not that Elias Pettersson isn't. I mean, he's paid to be, but he's got to be one of the more frustrating players in fantasy hockey right now, is he not? Because he's on a good team, he's got a good role, he gets a lot of minutes, doesn't like to shoot the puck for whatever reason, even though he's got a great shot when he does. So just a frustrating file to own, and one that I tend to avoid on a year-by-year basis. So Nylander is the easy answer for me.
Delivered by Skip, will Matthews and Jack Hughes bounce back? A lot of questions about those two guys specifically, because by their standards, it hasn't been the best of starts. But Jake, I'm buying on both these guys. I don't know about you.
I'm buying as well. I think that these are guys that you can trust, and we're getting a little bit of a bump up in terms of role. So I like this one. I'm with you on that one, Pete. I'll throw this one at you. Thoughts on Ivan, or are we calling him Ivan, with Ross Colton going down? I love this. This is probably my favorite name in the National Hockey League right now. Ross Colton going down. He's getting the bump. Pete, are we interested there?
Never trust a man with 2 first names, especially when they're the exact same name. No, just kidding. It's a good story for the Avs to integrate some of these no names that we didn't know in years past. But I think that with Colorado, Arturi Lehkonen is slated to come back on Tuesday, so I wouldn't get too involved with Ivan. Also, Druin is nearing a return, but I trust Lehkonen a lot more. Since we last talked, big bummer, right? Guy that we're a fan of on the show, Ross Colton, out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken foot.
Yeah, it's been that type of year so far for the Colorado Avalanche. Yvonne, by the way, on the top power play, and it scored a beauty on Wednesday night, a tip off a Cale Makar point shot. But it really has been a revolving door of like next man up to play with McKinnon and Rantanen on that top line, and the injuries are starting to pile up here, Jake.
They are. I mean, how far down the lineup in the depth chart can we go in Colorado? It's getting crazy. I feel bad for Ross Colton. I mean, he had a great role going there. He was honestly one of my favorite shot prop and point prop guys there for a little while. Now he's on the shelf. So like Pete said, Lehkonen nearing a return. Not sure about Val Nichushkin, but it sounds like it's possible at some point in November. So reinforcements could be on the way. But man, this roster is looking pretty thin. We had some great listener questions. Just going through them. Obviously brought to you by Skip here, guys. This one I like a lot. Kyle. Jason Robertson, what do I do, in all capital letters? I hate to say I told you so, but this was a file that I was kind of avoiding going into the year. Nick, are you concerned about Robertson in that lineup?
Absolutely not. I believe in Jason Robertson and his bounce back season. If you recall early on, the first couple games, he looked very Robertson-like. It's a long season. I think he figures this out. I know it's been a struggle the last couple games, but I think from a fantasy perspective, patience is a virtue. You got to remember it's an 82-game campaign. I'm buying on this file. Like, I think if you have the opportunity, Jake, to pick up a guy and trade for less than market value in a Jason Robertson, I'm doing it right now.
Well, yeah, I think via trade now would be where I would maybe have some interest depending on what I'm giving back. In terms of drafting him at the start of the season, I think I tried to make the point that Dallas, kind of like Carolina, they like to spread things out, right? They've got, 4 lines that all roll. You don't know who's going to be the guy in Dallas. It could be Johnston, it could be Stankoven, Duchesne, Seguin, Hintz, Roberts. There's so many guys, and they're a very talented team. But I do think that it hurts Robertson's high-end value when you're, thinking about taking him in the second or third round. So now that maybe people are down on him a little bit, I hear your point, Nick. I think there could be some value in possibly trading for him.
I'm sure he's going to go on a monster streak at some point this year, just like Matt Duchene's on now, right? You could say trick or treat Matt Duchene. I don't think he's going to keep this up. With all due respect to what he's done in his career, just because so many cooks in the kitchen, everybody's going to go on a heater at some point. Jamie Benn's going to, have a 5 to 7 game point streak with good category coverage at some point, and he'll end up in the top 100 overall like he always does by season's end. And Seguin, good start since coming back from injury as well. So best offense in the league. I would buy in on Jason Robertson for sure.
Delivered by Skip. I've got Ingram and Georgiev. I need some help. We got to send this guy a full package, man. Oh, buddy, Jake. Oh, buddy. I will say, as an Ingram fantasy owner, I felt a bit better on Wednesday, that victory against Calgary for Utah.
Yeah, a little better, right? And Calgary actually coming back down to earth a little bit. But that was a big win for Utah. They'd been kind of struggling, issues on the back end as well. So Ingram, okay, I'm fine with that. I think that file is going to get a little bit better. Georgiev, I don't know here, guys. I don't even know what to say at this point. Pete, you got any help on this one?
I'm sure Annanen's gone. Maybe look at like a quality backup out there. Casey DeSmith, 2 wins and a shutout in 3 games, 936. You're going to have to go if your goalie situation is in dire straits, like you just said with Ingram. And I guess Utah acquired Oli Mata. I don't know what that really does to solve any of their issues, but it's at least a body that can, play at a decent level in the NHL. But yeah, I would look at like a backup out there, a Jake Allen, Casey DeSmith, somebody like that, and play the waiver wire. Hope the Minnesota Wild call up Jesper Wallstedt or something like that, or Sharks call up Askarov at some point, and you can catch lightning in a bottle.
I was just thinking, what happened to Samuel Montembeault, Jake? Remember the first couple games? We're talking about the 4 nations quite a bit here in Canada, obviously, and wondering who the starting goaltender is going to be, who the goalies are going to be. And Montembeault, it's been a fall from grace for the Montreal Netminder.
I think he peaked a little too early there, Nick. Game 1 of the season, a nice start. You get your confidence up early. You beat a rival like the Maple Leafs. It's been all downhill. He couldn't save anything earlier this week against the Kraken. That was a rough one. So I think we're kind of off that file right now. I want to throw this listener question at you as well. What is up with the Boston Bruins, Nick? Like, are we starting to get worried there in general as a team, but from a fantasy perspective as well? Like, nobody on that roster is going right now.
I had an irate fantasy owner tweet at me, or X at me the other day, about like a laundry list of players doing absolutely nothing. Lindholm, McAvoy, the goaltending. I'm patient with the Boston Bruins. I think they're the type of team, if they don't get results soon, I think they're going to make a substantial change. Unfortunately, it could be behind the bench, but I think this is what I expected from Boston last year. It's really bizarre how it's been sort of a sluggish start, but maybe this is something that could have been foreshadowed by everything that played out with Jeremy Swayman. I just think this is more, Jake, what the Boston Bruins are compared to what we saw last year. I don't know if you feel differently about this team.
Well, I'm a little disappointed because I was high on this team coming into this year, Nick. I like the moves that they made. Lindholm down the middle of the ice, Zadorov on the back end. Obviously, we played the whole Swayman situation the month before the season, but that gets figured out. So to me, there was a lot to like here, and I actually thought they could challenge for the top spot in the Atlantic. Maybe they can figure it out and still do that, but it's looking less and less likely. And I think the problem for me, lack of finishing ability. It kind of feels like everybody's just looking at David Pastrnak. Okay, score us a goal, buddy. Nobody else can put the puck in the back of the net. So, I mean, no one's magically just going to become a 30, 40 goal scorer on that roster. So it could be an issue all season.
Lots of tension up and down that roster right now. Jake, let's get to some Mookie bets. You like that? The LA Dodgers World Series champions. Sorry to put that in producer Bob's face, but some bets. The betting line for the next couple days. I'll start on Thursday's card. I like the stagger this week, by the way. It's a lot of fun. Producer Bob, you want to chime in here first?
I mean, talk about an unnatural weaving in of Mookie Betts. It just seems like it was a personal shot to me. And we don't like to we like to focus in on the National Hockey League. We don't like to highlight these other leagues, Nick. So just keep that in mind.
Apologies. Nobody watches baseball here who listens to this show. Seattle at Toronto on Thursday intrigues me. Jake, this is my call right now. I'm calling my shot, Babe Ruth style. Austin Matthews, multi-goal night against the Seattle Kraken. He's got 6 goals in 6 career games against Seattle. The Kraken coming off a blow-up victory against Montreal. I think Matthews is ready to erupt here.
Yeah, Nick, I might actually grab some last-minute tickets to that game and go check out a little Kraken Leaf. So we'll see about that, and a couple Matthews goals would be sort of fun. I'm looking at the big dog, the Anaheim Ducks. You guys know I like to go big dog hunting. Can we trust Pittsburgh as a huge favorite? I mean, come on. If Dostal gets this start as of record, I'm not sure, but I assume it's going to be Dostal. If that's the case, I'm interested in backing the Ducks tonight, guys.
Going back to the Seattle-Toronto game, Jake, if you're going to be in the building, you better prepare yourself for a very quiet night on the ice. And if you're looking for Matthews goals, you better watch out because Bob Bender likes the under 6.5 in the game, so mark it down. I think it's going to be a quiet snooze fest there in Toronto tonight.
Place is always quiet, so I understand that. Edmonton at Nashville is another game I got circled, guys. Obviously, with McDavid out, somebody needs to step up. I think it's Draisaitl, 25 goals in 27 career games against the Preds, so I'm playing the anytime goal in that one. Looking at the schedule further throughout the weekend, Friday, Winnipeg at Columbus. I like the Columbus money line, 3-0-1 in the last 4. I know the Jets are, 9-1-0 in the first 10 games, but there's got to be some regression there, Jake.
I would think so. I was kind of looking at that one as well. But I also thought the Jets could be a fade on Wednesday, and clearly I was wrong about that. I think the play actually was Kyle Connor returning to Michigan, just playing the point, and the goal prop, right, the homecoming. I know I'm getting greasy with these dogs, guys. I apologize, Anaheim. But San Jose, like they're feeling themselves a little bit. I don't think I bet the Sharks all season for good reason. I mean, this team is just not good, but they've won a couple in a row. You get the Blackhawks coming through town, home underdog. I don't know. I got a little interest in backing the Sharks, seeing if they can string a few together here.
Fair enough. I love the revenge angle as well. Craig Berube returning to St. Louis. I know I tried to call my shot last week, but I think it happens this time. I'm going to play the puck line, the least puck line Saturday night. Craig Berube return to St. Louis. Do you like it, Jake?
I don't mind it. I do love the revenge angle, but man, and St. Louis, like what happened the other night? Was that a couple days off in Montreal or what? What happened to the Blues? The Blues the other night. That was a tough scene. But Pete, anything you're looking at here the next couple of days? I know producer Bob said we got to focus on NHL plays, but I know you got to be hammering the Nittany Lions on Saturday, right? Big game.
I don't know about hammering. You can't do that when they've lost 9 of the past 10. But I would actually fade Penn State. I hope they win, but I do not think they're going to win this game. I did like the backup quarterback a little bit, though. If they start him, maybe that'll change my tune a little bit. I like Matvei Michkov for a power play point. He has 9 points in 10 games this season, 6 on the power play, and I agree with you, Jake. I was not impressed by the St. Louis Blues the other night. I thought they were going to win that game, and they got the doors blown off. So go with Michkov. He's been the best rookie neck and neck with Logan Stankoven, and I think he could tilt the scale a little bit in this game here.
I got one more for you guys here. Friday night, I got to continue to ride this team. You guys know in the group chat I've been heavy on them, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm feeling it. I'm going to continue to ride this until it's done. I think we're still getting some good prices on the Jackets, and I think in the player prop market as well. You can look to Sean Monahan for shots, points. I mentioned Cole Sillinger earlier in the episode. Chinnikov continues to shoot as well. So a lot of guys I'm interested in that I think you're still getting good prices on with the Jackets for the time being.
I actually like what they've been doing a little bit, moving Chinnikov to the second line here and there with Fantilli to get Fantilli going. Sillinger has been on power play 1. The Jackets have a top 5 offense in the league in terms of goals per game this year. Sillinger's got 8 points in his first 9. And kind of like Jake Wallman, who I was talking about, who's also a fixture on power play 1, the power play points should start coming for Wallman. They should also start coming eventually for Cole Sillinger. So keep an eye on that in deeper leagues.
We look forward to the month of November. Thanks to producer Bob Bender. For Jay Kahn and Pete Jensen, I'm Nick Alberga. You've been listening to NHL Fantasy on Ice, delivered by Skip. Skip to the good part and get groceries, meals, and essentials delivered right to your door on Skip.